Right, this video is going to cover setting up a hazard reporting form for your health and safety website. And we're going to start off by setting up the fields and the all-important validation, which is going to reduce GIGO, or garbage in, garbage out, the data that this form collects. So hopefully we're going to ensure that the forms that do get submitted are as reasonable as possible in terms of the data that's collected using the computer-based validation checks that we can set up. Okay, so to start off with, we're going to do the first field, which is the date field. And if we look down the side here, I've got a quick tool for date. So the date time field, I'm going to drag that on. Okay, report date, I'm going to type in there as the name of the field, and click that on. So the report date. Now this field, we don't actually need our users to complete at all. We should be able to get the date to be looked up automatically from the system, and so there should be no human error possible here. So let's just have a look at how we can do that. So let's head into the settings of the field, and let's have a look at the properties of the field. And we can see here that by default it will populate that field with the current date time. So that's great. What we need to do is prevent the users from then being able to change it to a different date, and to do that we're going to change this property at the bottom to read only and press yes. Okay, just note some of the other properties in here. Disabling past dates could be something that you could have set up as well. Say for example the date could only occur in the future, but in this case we don't even need them to be able to enter the date, so that's absolutely fine. And we can just test that's working by going to the preview, and if you can see there, yeah, we've got the current date, time, and everything's fine. The only thing that we might want to change here is just the format of the date, because at the moment we've got month, day, year, which is the American format. Let's change it to the British format by using this option up here, and there we go, that's looking good. Okay, so we've got the report date for the hazard. Okay, the second field we're going to add in then is the name of the person who's reporting the hazard. So again, handy tool pre-made over here for full name. Don't really need to change that. The only property that I'm going to set here is that this should be a required field, so a presence check to make sure that the reporter has completed their name correctly in there, I think is an important feature. Okay, the next field we're going to look at is the extension number on which to contact that person who might have reported the hazard. So to do that, I'm going to go into Form Tools. I'm just going to use a standard text box for this one. I'm going to drag that on, and let's type that in. So ext number dots. Okay, so extension number. Again, validation on this, I'm going to have that as a required field. Okay, so every member of staff should have their own contact or extension number to get hold of them on. I do want to change the settings on this, so let's go again into the properties. Now the size of this field, well, the extension numbers are always maximum of 3 numbers, so I'm going to type that in there in terms of the telephone number. So the extension number 3 numbers, and the other validation I want to set up on this one is a format check, and to do that I'm going to use an input mask, because this particular field obviously should only accept numeric data. Okay, so I'm going to put in the sign for that, which is ###. Okay, if I wanted to have a format check using letters as well, then I'd use the @ symbol, but I don't. I just want the 3 numbers for my telephone number, and let's just double check that that's working. If I go into preview mode, okay, if I try typing in the letters, it won't let me. If I try putting in an extension number 001, it's working fine. Can I put anything more than that in? No, I can't. Okay, so that validation is already working as well. One thing I might do just to improve the layout of this a little bit, you'll notice you have the option to shrink fields, so I'm going to shrink that field. I'm also going to shrink my extension field just to reduce the amount of scrolling that my users will have to do when navigating this form. Okay, good. Right, the next field I was going to use was going to be an email address field. So again, the type of data is obviously a text for an email address, so I'm going to grab that and drag that on like so. Oh, that was the text. I wanted the text box, so let's grab that on. Okay, I'm going to put email address in here. this one. And again, let's have a look at the settings for this particular form. Well, I am going to have that as a required field again. Okay, so I can definitely get in contact. Oh, I just need to budge that down a little bit underneath there. Yeah. And the other thing then, let's see if we can set up some validation for the actual email address. So if we select the email address, what do we have in here? So we do have a format check for the email, so that will check that the @ sign is in the appropriate location, and that there is a domain name coming after that @ sign as well, so .co.uk or .com, for example. There, so email address on that line, and it's set as a required field, which is great. The next field I thought makes some use of some list box validation, so let's go and grab a drop down menu from here, drag this on. So this is preferred contact. Okay, so is it going to be best to get hold of them on the phone or via email? Let's go to the options and set those up. So option number 1 needs to be email, number 2 needs to be on the extension line on the phone number. Okay, so some nice list box validation, and again they need to select that, okay, as a presence check. Okay. The final field then is just a case of adding on a place for them to record the room number. So the room number we're going to use numeric data for. So let's go and grab a room number from here and drag that on. Okay, so room number, and this is where the hazard has been reported. And so we want to set a range check here because we've only got a limited number of rooms within the building, so let's set that as 100. So from 1 to 100 should be the properties here, so we want some kind of range check. So I'm going to set that as a required field as well because the hazard must have a location, obviously. And then let's set the room number for that hazard. So it's going to show properties, and set the minimum value, which we'll have as 1, and set the maximum value, which will be 100. So we've got a nice bit of range validation in there as well. Close the settings. Okay, and again, if we just test that, hopefully that's working. So if we go 120 and click out, there we go, cannot exceed the value 100, so that validation is working as well, which is good to see. Okay, and the final field is obviously where they need to put in the description of the actual hazard that they've identified. But for that, we're going to use a text area, I think is the one that we want. So let's go and drag that on there, and then description of hazard in the description of hazard, and there we go. We've got our submit button already set up at the bottom there. We definitely need to have the hazard as a required form, otherwise there's no point in it being sent in the first place. And there we go, we have our fields. We've set up our validation to reduce the chances of data entry error on input. The next video will kind of focus on the presentation of the form.